faces. Mine is this: if these are two jointly sufficient conditions, they are necessary, two necessary, and jointly sufficient. One and two are both necessary. Together they are sufficient, and that's why it seems to me contradictory then to just wait the right to a democracy and say, okay, you can have people who doesn't care about democracy. It's contradictory.
Okay. To say that, I mean, the issue of what it means to be a necessary condition and whether it's possible to have two things that jointly are sufficient condition are two different things. I mean, I think we agree on the fact that if there are two things that are jointly sufficient for certain things, we have still said nothing about whether these conditions are necessary or not. I mean, go back to my example of losing weight. Now it's going to be brutal. I mean, when I said that it's jointly sufficient to lose weight if you both exercise, if you don't eat too much, I don't mean, and you should not mean, that each of these or the two things are necessary for losing weight, because you may have a cancer. You lose weight neither because you exercise nor because you don't eat more than what you should, but simply because you're sick. So you have still said nothing about what is necessary. Okay?
I don't see that.
Yeah. So what I find strange is this normally necessary, which he should say. I mean, if he needs this because it's only in virtue of this qualification, this weakening of the notion of necessary, that you can then say that, at least from a logical point of view, there could be a non-democratic government that respects basic human rights. Yeah?
May I make a question regarding this same point? I think that democracy is not only sufficient condition for the fulfillment of human rights. I think that Cristiano should go further and say that democracy is also a necessary condition for fulfillment of human rights, because if we take seriously one central point of Habermas regarding the relation between democracy and
co-originality.
human rights, we should accept that it's not possible, it's not even possible to elaborate a list of human rights, be it a list embodied in any international treaty or one embodied in a national constitution without democracy.
Right. Very good point.
But furthermore, I think that taking into account that lists of human rights are very often vague and even indeterminate, democracy, according to Habermas, is also necessary for the determination of the very contents of accepted or recognized, really recognized.
Yeah, no, it's an excellent point. I think Cristiano would agree with you in the sense that he kind of tries to accommodate this Habermasian point that you are making by talking about you know what I mean. The fact that the decision has to be unanimous. But okay, it doesn't matter. So there must be, let's call it, an Habermasian moment when we decide both that we have these human rights and that Cristiano would add, but we could also decide that we could waive these human rights. So I think that It's just a qualification of Habermas's point. So Cristiano would say, yes, Habermas is right. In fact, human rights and democracies are co-original. It's not that democracy is derived from human rights, it's not that human rights are derived from democracy, they are at the same logical level. Okay, you can't have one without having the other. And that's exactly what I've shown you. That's why, unlike Cohen, I say that there is a human right to democracy. But I add, trying to make a step forward compared to Habermas, that in virtue of certain political traditions around the world, I mean, remember that Habermas is a liberal democratic thinker in the end, and it's not clear that what is, well, yeah, I mean, that's what Rawls criticized about Habermas, that he has a comprehensive view in political philosophy, that he makes an argument that is supposed to be valid everywhere. It's a kind of metaphysical argument in a sense. But okay, let's leave that aside. I think that Cristiano would say, look, I share this point about the co-originality between human rights and democracy. I just want to remind you, Habermas, that rights are sometimes waived. Sometimes you can waive your right. And so why not thinking that you can also waive your right to democracy? And at that point, the two things would still be co-original, but a certain political community may, in a unanimous way, decide to waive each citizen's right to democracy and therefore legitimately side in favor of a non-democratic form of government.
I would dare to disagree with you now.
There.
I think that you break with Habermas' thesis of originality between the rights and democracy. Once you assume that it is still possible to have human rights, or at least the fulfillment of human rights, assumed human rights, without democracy or waiving, even waiving the human rights to democracy. Because I think that Habermas would ask you now, well, what guarantees that the list of human rights that a non-democratic government is proposing to its citizens is an acceptable interpretation of dignity and human rights or of autonomy. What guarantees that this government is really presenting a truthful and faithful interpretation of citizens' assumptions regarding their dignity and autonomy?
Yeah, no, I think this is also a very good point. So your idea is, if you really take seriously the possibility of this waiving of the right to democracy, and then you consider legitimate a non-democratic form of government, where is the guarantee that this non-democratic government will issue interpretation of basic liberties or basic human rights that are acceptable or in line with what the international community thinks of this liberty and interpretation? Yeah, I mean, maybe you're right. I mean, I would reply, I'm tempted to reply, what guarantee is there that democratic form of government will issue? I mean, the point that Habermas has is a very abstract one, right? And again, I think that Cristiano agrees with that, unlike Rawls and Cohen. You can't have logically human rights without having democracy. You can not have democracy without human rights. At a logical and very abstract level, that is the case. Now, we know, as a matter of fact, that there are democracies few, perfectly legitimate form of governments in terms of how they were elected and so on and so forth, that may be pretty serious human rights violators. Perhaps not as serious as the North Korean government, but still. So I would avoid the talk of where is the guarantee that so I guess I'm suggesting you want to keep this upper Messian point where it belongs, which is in the heavens of philosophical abstraction. And in those heavens you will find also Cristiano, as I told you, because it's pretty much in virtue of this intuition that if you start from the assumption that each individual counts and counts equally, there must be a moment in which each decides on equal terms what our society is supposed to do, and even what our constitution is supposed to look like. But I think this is still compatible with the idea, which is not empirically possible but logically consistent, that this community waives its right to a non-democratic form of government, perhaps selected on the basis of merit as opposed to consensus. I mean, why should consensus be the thing that determines the ones who rule us? Why don't we, decide on the basis of merit? Merit, not just, as I told you before, not just in terms of intellectual skills, but also in terms of your moral record. Have you been a decent person? Have you ever stolen? Have you ever done terrible things? I mean, in Italy, it's even difficult to pass a law that says that if you have been sentenced against crime, now we have that. That's the reason why Berlusconi could not compete. If you are a criminal recognized after the third degree of judgment, you cannot enter the fucking parliament. I mean, it took 50 years, 70 years to introduce this simple law. If you are sentenced and you are a criminal, you cannot be a representative of the state. I mean, it looks straightforward, but Italy is a democratic country. So politics is way more fun than philosophy in this case. That's for sure.
Maybe you could also consider Switzerland before the women's right to vote.
Right. Not to mention the fact that democracy.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, democracy comes in very different forms. I mean, even before the women being allowed to vote in Switzerland, very few people would say that Switzerland was not a democratic country. I mean, not to mention what democracy was before the Second World War. I mean, there were very, very few. Yeah, there were already the UK and perhaps also the United States allowing women, help me here, allowing women to vote, but it was very uncommon. I mean, in Italy in 1919 we had the first male universal suffrage, which incidentally led to fascism. Because it was really the fear of the working class voting that ultimately generated fascism. So the reaction of the bourgeoisie that so famous red years from 1919 to 1921. In 1922 there was the March on Rome. So I don't know why I'm saying that. Yeah, I mean, democracies comes in very different forms. But of course, what Habermas means is that only, universal suffrage and no discrimination among all citizens could be compatible with human rights. I agree with that, I know. And I have not much to add to it, except the fact that I told you that Cristiano would be sharing this Habermasian point, unlike Cohen and Rawls. Why? Because Rawls does not start from nowhere. He is not a philosopher who wants to tell you what justice is for everybody. A little bit like Habermas does, because in this he's a Kantian, Habermas. Whereas Rawls tells, from the very beginning, he says, I'm talking about liberal democracies here. I'm making it a theory that is valid only for liberal democracies. And when I talk about international justice, I do it from this point of view. I mean, the perspective is always, okay, I'm starting from a situated position in which I am a liberal thinker, I know that I belong to this tradition. Now, what do I do with the rest of the world? The law of people is not a theory of global justice. It's basically a theory of guidelines on foreign policies for liberal democracies. That's what the law of people is. How liberal democracies should behave towards the rest of with each other and towards the rest of the world. It's not, let's talk about global justice from an abstract, absolute point of view. And you find this also when you focus on this point of the relation between human rights and democracy. Rawls and Cohen have a different approach than Christianity. Other questions? We still have 10 minutes. Or, okay, tomorrow we will be doing things way less abstract than what we have done so far, but I took the opportunity to do a little bit of abstract things because I usually, as I told you, have political science students, and I have to considerably lower the level of sophistication, or at least of philosophical abstraction. So I exploited you. But tomorrow we will be talking about these alleged realities in which democracy is not well rooted and that seem to be at odds with the culture of human rights. So Islamic world, the so-called Asian world, whatever that means. We'll see how it goes.